You, man. I think it's your Elon Musk. You gotta have a talk with your boy.
Is it me?
I think so. I hear Josh fine. Josh,
I
you
hear
hear me
Josh
fine?
too.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
He hears me fine.
Oh, now you're coming in clear on
Ne-
my end.
Me, I am.
Yeah, am
Coming
I
in
clear
hot.
on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sound really good.
How about you, Josh?
Fine. Yeah, I don't. Was there a change? Something happened.
There was a change in demeanor.
Oh, okay.
This is an ongoing issue. It's one of those things, you know.
Oh, what was wrong with the camera?
I don't like the Apple camera. I don't like it. It's not me. It doesn't reflect me. It doesn't bring out the finer qualities of well, let me change it. This one works fine. But I look sullen and downtrodden. I don't like that.
Speaking of catching your good side, man, that illustration that you have by your email now,
Which one's that? You're talking about Aaron or me?
you,
Oh, which one's that?
Shandin.
Yeah.
So
What does it look like?
it's kind of old timey, you know, and it's got like it. I don't know. So I only recognize it because I've seen in other people's house like an old drawing that I guess must have been done in that style.
Oh yeah.
Of like past chiefs.
Oh,
I was like, oh, he got one of them done.
This guy's just named me chief of the
No,
email
well,
tribe. You mean? Oh, okay.
There's like
you
an
mean,
illustration of you.
You mean on the Facebook?
Oh,
on the old
okay.
Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that what?
Yeah, that was like a Toon Me filter.
Oh,
yeah, you know, cartoon me. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, they did a pretty good job.
Well, AI, yeah. They being the AI
Well, okay.
gang.
Yeah.
The algorithm that is AI. Well, the picture does reflect, accentuates the demeanor and habit of the individual. No, I don't know.
The sullenness.
The sullenness, the downtroddenness. Aaron, we can't even hear you. If you're saying anything, you're not coming in. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Aaron, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic. You're muted.
Okay, let's try this. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shandin, say count to 10 for me in the Salish language.
Okay. Count to 10 for me in the Salish language. Let's see if you still got it. See if you remember how far I can.
No, you count me.
No, I want you to count, and then I'll try to count in the Crow language.
I can't remember.
You can remember at least one.
In Ku.
What?
What is it? What's number 2?
You said it. Say it again.
After that?
Yeah. That's 3.
I can't remember 3. Or did I say 3?
Yeah.
And then moose?
Yeah. That's it?
Well, you said at least you can remember one.
Yeah, you did.
Dude, it's not like I heard Salish every day.
You're right. You did it. Okay.
When I first got there, that first 5 years, 3 years was like, I swear to God, because I didn't have the confines of like you guys learning your language.
Oh, yeah.
I bet I could have learned it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was no pressure for me.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's like, do what you want. You're not from here.
Yeah. You kind of had to free for all.
Yeah. And then I was around like Alec a lot and Johnny quite a bit. And
oh, yeah.
Even Joe Kaluuya and
oh, yeah.
Ushani and
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
But you heard it a lot.
I heard it at the Sweat more. They never talked conversationally ever.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I
do.
told you the only Salish, I told you this before. The only Salish conversation I ever heard in my life was in Harvest Foods. I heard Philip Paul and
Yeah.
Octave Finley talking to each other in the bread aisle.
Wow.
That was it. And it wasn't long. But you could tell it was casual, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare to hear that. Very
Mhm.
rare. At least
Very-
even for me, like the beginning conversation, they'd start talking, say a few
Yeah.
things, ha ha around.
They kind of stay going. Someone says something funny, they laugh, then they go into English.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
Mhm.
pattern. That's the
Yeah.
pattern.
The meat and the greets and the politics stuff, the quick joke,
Yeah.
everyone laughs, and then
Yeah.
right back to English.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Honest to God, dude, the most Salish I've ever heard come out of one person's mouth all the time is Aspen Decker.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like just
Yeah.
constant, you know.
Just really putting it out there. Really
Mhm.
putting it out there. Yeah. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
I think that's
I'm
good.
supportive.
Yeah. What are you eating?
Meatballs.
Is that a Hardin? Is that a cuisine known in Hardin?
It's a cuisine known in Costco.
Mm.
It's like those Costco warm-up ones. Dude,
Yeah.
I eat every podcast.
You do. You do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With no shame.
No
Speaking
shame at
of
all.
39, this is you guys are getting prolific. Is this number 39? Did I read that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we started?
39th episode. I mean, some people are really on it, you know, they're pumping out episodes every week. And I used to be really on that, thinking, okay, every week we got to put something out. But
Do you
man,
remember when we had that first conversation about like not pressuring ourselves to put out content
yeah,
and just said, we'll do it when we want to do it?
yeah, something comes up.
Then I remember you said, well, we only have whatever, like 200 subscribers or something.
Yeah,
And I said, put them all in one room. That's a big deal if we're talking to 200 people.
it's a lot of people.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah,
If you like said, hey, we're going to have Shandin and Aaron are going to give a lecture tonight at the Mansfield Library, and 200 people showed up, we'd be like, holy shit. So, yeah.
that'd be strange. Yeah, it's like when somebody says, yeah, oh man, I ate about a million pieces of cake. You're like, well, have you ever seen a million of anything? No.
Oh, yeah.
You've
dude.
never
Or
seen 1 million of anything.
the best is when you're growing up and you're a little reser and somebody gets into a fight. Then they're
Yeah.
like, you got to fight. He's like, yeah, man, we like fought for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 30 seconds.
Yeah, if that.
If that, yeah. Yeah, 30 seconds. Tops.
Yeah. So are we started?
Yeah,
All right. Well,
we're on.
we're on. I'll
We've
quit
been on
eating
it.
meatballs then.
Keep down and keep choking those down, man. Let's see how many have you eaten so
Thank you.
far? Let's get a count. A meatball count.
But there's about 7 of them bad boys in there.
So you've eaten 7 with 7
Yeah.
remaining.
No, she's all done. She's
Oh.
all done.
Oh, okay. So you ate 7 meatballs, and those are modest size. They're not. That's not like
They're probably this big.
That's about the size of a large hawk bell.
Like the camera blurred that out just
it
then.
did,
Like,
yeah. The camera
can't-
blurred that.
you can't show that on this podcast.
Yeah. As a large
Chicken.
inch and a half hawk bell.
Do your best, Father Conley. Josh, do you know who Father Conley is?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well,
All right. Well, that ruined. That got us off of meatballs.
oh, wait, no.
what?
Who's the one from Coeur d'Alene?
Yeah.
That's Father
Conley.
Conley, right? Okay, so yeah.
Connolly. You
So
got
when I
it.
first moved to Flathead,
Are we gonna play
Right.
Name That Priest right now? Is that what we're doing?
Name
kind
that
of.
priest.
when I first moved to Flathead, like way back 100 years ago, there were still quite a few of them. There was, I don't know, maybe about 200 Salish speakers, maybe a little more. What do you think?
No,
You don't
I
think
don't
so?
think so.
100?
Wait, what year?
150?
You're talking 20 years ago?
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
The only reason that
Approximate.
number stuck in my head because Nkusum was just getting going.
Yeah,
They kind of had the numbers, and I vaguely remember hearing that number.
yeah,
But that could have been a 5-year-old number too when they're saying it to me. But
right.
anyway,
Oh, yeah. Anyway,
Johnny was still the man then. In fact, I would say he was even more of the man at Flathead than now,
Right.
But every time there was a big to do on the Flathead, so mainly at Arlie, and there
yeah.
was always two dudes that showed up, and they were like respected people. One of them was Francis Kaluuya. He showed up, and then Father Conley from Coeur d'Alene, man, dude, and this guy could rip the Salish, man.
Yeah.
Their language, like he could just rip it.
Yeah. He had the style too. He had a big reservation hat.
You remember his reservation hat?
Yeah,
His
all that
big
stuff.
like cane thing.
Big
And
old
he'd dance, like he'd get there and
Oh, yeah.
dude, he'd get down, dude. He'd get down. And then so one time I was working for the Catholic Church in Mission, and then
For the black robes.
for the black robes, and then Father Drew really danced at Arlie, and then he'd tell me, he said, Aaron, did you see me dancing? Didn't I just remind you of Father Conley?
Oh,
I was like, no.
Oh,
dude,
set that bar.
I was
Connolly
like,
set the
no.
bar. Yeah,
I was
no.
like, no, you did not remind me of Father Conley at all.
No, you got some work on your outfit there.
I'm impressed that he learned their language. Not because it's hard to learn their language or whatever. It's because there's not a lot of speakers of it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like where was he getting his content and his time, his reps,
Yeah.
Man, that is impressive.
It
was
is.
real impressive.
It is.
So
Agreed.
yeah, well, should we introduce our listeners to who's joining us today?
Suppose.
So Josh, I gotta admit something to you.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Confession time. Wait,
Yeah.
let's set the mood first.
Got priests, we got confessions.
In the
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. All right, we got the mood. Okay.
The mood's set. I gotta tell you something. So I have my wife's brother.
Yeah.
His name is Josh. Okay.
Yeah.
My sister's son, his name is Josh. And then the nephew, who was actually our godson, that's crazy because I'm not even Catholic, but his name is Josh. Okay. So we came across a dilemma here when you came into came into my life. It was like, that's the fourth Josh.
Whoa.
So the brother-in-law got Josh. Okay, that's Josh. Yeah. The nephew got Joshua.
Okay.
The godson got JJ, Josh Jr.
Makes sense.
And in Native people's all-knowing wisdom, the name we came up for you is White Josh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what's funny is that my cousin's last name is White. So
whoa. White, Josh.
So this episode is gonna be titled The Saga of White Josh.
All right. I like it.
So White Josh, who comes to us from Arlie, Montana by way of Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
By way of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and
welcome to the show, man.
Sam Buffalo, when I met him and I told him who I was, he ever since called me Philly.
Philly.
Philly
We're in Pennsylvania. Hey, no, Philly's that's the mouse, right? The mouse.
No, that's the city in Philadelphia.
No, that's the mouse that comes to America. You know,
That's
American Dream.
That's Fievel.
I know, but they called him Philly.
Oh,
There are no cats in America.
And the streets are paved with. Is it cheese? Cheese.
yeah.
Because there are.
Which turned out not to be true at all.
No, they were so wrong.
They were wrong. They were
yeah.
wrong.
Whoever told them that. Yeah. Anyway,
so Josh.
Okay. Josh is from Scranton or where about?
Scranton.
No,
Scranton.
I'm from outside of Philadelphia, a place called Valley Forge.
Ooh. Whoa.
Yeah.
Colonizer.
Yeah. It's actually worse than that. So the area is actually the town right next to Valley Forge is Wayne, Pennsylvania, named after General Mad Anthony Wayne, famous for committing Indian massacres.
Oh boy.
This high school I went to is Conestoga High School.
Oh, Conestoga wagon.
In that Conestoga wagon.
Conestoga actually is an Iroquoian word.
What?
For a group of people that were Iroquois that lived in that area and were wiped out by Presbyterian yahoos with guns in like the 1780s. There's an account of it in a religious, like historical pamphlet, like a church chronicle. So yeah, I mean, the genocidal maniacs from back east run deep, man. It's rough.
You gotta stop.
Okay, let's go back because this could take up this whole conversation.
Okay,
because that was a lot. That was a lot to consume, man. Conestoga wagon. That's an Iroquois word. Which one? Conestoga or wagon?
Conestoga.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah, quite the history in those parts. We chatted with a gentleman from the southeast, and we kind of got our minds blown. Remember that?
Yeah. What was his name?
I can't think of it.
Conestoga wagon.
Conestoga wagon. He was the vampire. The vampire.
What was his name?
The vampire. Why can't I think of his name off the top of my god?
That was a good podcast.
That was a good one.
Underrated.
I don't know why I can't think of his name. Anyway, yeah, we had a brief chat about some experiences in those parts. That was quite eye-opening.
It was.
Yeah, because of the history. The history in that area went back way back in time. I think, what was he saying, the Victorian or the Elizabethan age? I can't remember.
Man, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to.
Ryan Emanuel. Ryan Emanuel.
Ryan, we should have him back.
Sorry. We're gonna episode 30. Yeah, mind blowing, you know. And so right now you're dropping some knowledge on us about all these atrocities, etc. And that, you know,
that's what we're about here.
We're about atrocity. It gets us the stars. It gets us the stars, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about that. But that's,
you don't have to say anything. I'm sorry. You guys took my brain there. Yeah, and I know Aaron and Shandin because we used to work at SKC together.
Right.
Is really what people probably wanted to know.
No, they don't want to know that.
They don't want to know that.
They don't want to know that. They're not interested.
I gotta do a podcast.
There you go.
Here. Oh, you're gonna cleanse.
Gotta cleanse the mic.
Cleanse your mic off. Yeah. That went deep quick.
Remember we were watching. We actually were on a Zoom or something. Wasn't someone trying to smudge the
Yeah,
Remember?
that was a thing for a while.
It was like a real thing. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, that's not how
it
it
does.
works.
It doesn't work like that.
You need the smoke.
You
I
kind of
hate to
need.
tell people, like, there's a big push in like Indian country to be like your feelings.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's my truth. Nah, it don't work that way sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
anyway,
I listened to it's a pretty good podcast. A guy from down in Australia, and he talks the same way that we talked about that whole thing. He even talks about these talking circles. Yeah, they got these talking circles, and they pass like a stick or a talisman around, and everybody gets a chance to say how they feel. He said, well, maybe some people don't deserve to talk about how they feel, because
agreed.
he says they blabber on for hours and hours about how they feel. Nobody wants to hear that. I don't know. He had a better way to say it, but anyway,
Nobody
yeah,
wants to hear that.
we're getting off topic here. Okay, Pennsylvania.
What is the topic? Is there a topic?
Yeah,
There's never
you're
a topic.
you're the topic.
You're
Oh,
the
no.
topic.
You are the topic.
No, that can't be right.
It is. It's true. You've already dropped some knowledge on us about your upbringing, which included a lot of Indian killing. Apparently, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Not by you, not by you, of
Holy
course.
smokes, man.
In the past, from the area in which you live, and this is what's interesting about that is we've got plenty of native perspective on many number of things, but we don't necessarily have the other voice, I suppose you could say. So, for example, last episode we talked about a singing group. I assume were non-native, or maybe somewhere had some native heritage. I'm not sure, but they were good. They sounded really nice. And they had the sound that you would hear from I guess authentic singing group, I suppose you could say.
And they weren't ran off. You know
Ran
what I
off.
mean? That no one ran them off.
Oh yeah,
Like they at the end of the day, it's like if you do it right, people
yeah,
will accept it. If you're non-native and you come into native country.
yeah,
So like when Calling Mountain like come out the gate, I mean they sounded like they knew, they learned the right way. They
yeah,
didn't like, and I don't know their history, so I don't know if they did learn from like videos or like hobbyist communities, but
yeah.
they
But
didn't
even
sound that way. They didn't
yeah,
sound that way. They sounded good.
yeah. I think even in that way, you can get to a certain level.
Yeah.
But if your intent is right, then you in a way you sort of transform to the next level. You start showing up.
So let's think of it this way. How many white drum groups have you ever heard?
Myself,
Yeah.
um, um, I'm trying to think. Maybe a couple.
4?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
4 or
say
less
4.
at least.
Yeah, even 3. So of
Maybe
the
3.
3 drum groups, how many were singing correctly?
Oh yeah, just the one. Just the one
The
we're
one.
talking about.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how many native drum groups have you seen?
Oh god, you can't even count.
Yeah,
A
1,000.
lot. Yeah, a lot.
How
100.
many of that 1,000 were singing correctly?
Maybe about 3/4,
Okay, so
or
Just
maybe a little
by
higher,
the-
2/3.
just by our rudimentary mathematics, white folk are even doing that better than us.
Via simple arithmetic,
Another
ratio-
atrocity just happened.
another atrocity dropped. Oh god.
It
Yeah.
happens. It happens.
I know it happens, and you can't fault them. It's just
Them.
them. You can't fault them,
You
folks.
can't fault them.
It's just a product. It's a product of something. Of
Yeah.
yeah. And you got and it's compounded by a couple things. Number one, nobody has the energy to help to correct, and or there's a resistance to accept being corrected.
Mm.
And that's an important one right there. That's really important. And I think if someone was, well, I don't know, I don't want to make a sweeping statement about someone's.
We're all about sweeping statements.
We can make a sweeping statement. Yeah, you know, it's with anything. If you're authentic and you really want to do something and you're trying hard and you get corrected, you don't just run off. You don't build up a wall and try to resist. Try to think you're more right or correct because you've seen it on a YouTube or I don't know, whatever instance.
I do.
Aaron might do that, but normal people, no, those who try, you know, they'll accept the criticism and they'll try to change what they're doing. That's with anybody in any line of anything that's going to happen. So anyway, what are we doing? What are you talking about? What do you want, Josh? What do you want? What are you here for?
So
you called us. No, yeah, it's like when somebody calls. What do you want? What do you want, man?
What do you want? You called it. Actually, we called Josh.
We called
Josh
him.
Josh was being like fine, just chilling, watching his liberal documentaries.
That's right.
Indoctrinating.
So this summer, I had went and kind of looked on a certain ceremonial life way that I won't mention what it is.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah. But then I noticed there was a large participation of non-Indian people there.
Okay.
Which I'm not inherently against.
Okay.
But something clicked on me. The light bulb went off. At this particular belief way, the construction of the lodge, there's a belief in that too. So it's not just what happens there, it's what during the construction, the belief is that you could, as a family, you could say, I want you to come to my property to get these parts for the lodge, and then good fortune would happen to you, right?
Yeah.
But then I noticed there's other ways too to pledge. Like my nephew could say, I'm going to go and help build the lodge today. Maybe something good will come to me. Right?
Yeah.
So it's this belief, this ripple effect.
Yeah.
But then when I got there, I noticed that everything was being done by these non-Indian people, right? White folk, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Which at first my instinct wasn't to be like get mad. In fact, it was like the opposite. I was like, look at all these Indians got these slaves, you know. But then I realized I thought about those other beliefs, those beliefs that come with it, and I thought, wait a second, by them being here for whatever reason they're here, in a way it hinders the participation of the community. Not meaning that they can't participate still, it's just that I think something happens, it slows it up. So then that night on my way home from it, I text White Josh, man. And I was like, and then I think I called you, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason being, and this is where you're gonna just take off with it, is Josh has spent some time in Indian country now, has actually looked on some ceremonies. He's done his best to learn the language. He's never shied away from participating in native stuff. But what I feel like is Josh has done a pretty decent thing, approach where he doesn't he's not overbearing. Like he's not trying to talk like he doesn't change his voice to be like, you know, and do stuff like that. Like he just Josh, he's being Josh. But after talking to Josh, he said there was some kind of learning lessons in that. So what we thought our listeners would benefit from, because I doubt all 75 of our listeners are all Indians.
200.
200.
I don't know
are
exactly.
Indians.
Yeah.
So we thought, man, they might maybe they want to hear from Josh, from
Yeah.
White Josh.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my
That,
introduction.
okay. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like,
So,
yeah, I feel like you prefaced
well,
that well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Shandin. Thank you.
Splendid. Splendid.
Now you sound like you're from what is it? Conestoga Wagon.
The Conestoga wagon. I heard they got a coffee shop built out of a Conestoga wagon.
Conestoga Wagon.
hey, come on over.
Come on over to my Conestoga wagon.
So, well, thanks for that gracious introduction. And yeah, part of it is being a little bit of knowledge is very dangerous. That kind of perspective.
Coming
See?
out of the gate,
Sizzle.
statement.
Sizzle.
Strong statement.
Sizzle.
Go.
That's like
Well,
the hair crimper. Go. Yeah.
That's basically been my approach in like keeping myself guarded from I guess or I guess what I'm saying is maintaining a light footprint when it comes to showing up at doings or where maybe there's a line where my approach has to be especially respectful. And so I was going to say before coming out, so I should also say that I got really motivated to work alongside Indian people and like, get to know culture more and be really really passionate and interested about it during Standing Rock, because a lot of the problems that I was dealing with in communities where I was working and living as a reporter for a newspaper were really predictable problems that it seemed like, if we're honest at all, Native culture has solutions for. And so I was just kind of exhausted by the predictability of a lot of problems and wanting to learn, right? How to get past them.
Yeah.
One book that I read was this book called Wolf That I Am by Fred McTaggart, about a white guy who visits Sac and Fox reservation and asks about stories. It's a good book for anybody who's like a non-Indian person interested in culture and trying to figure out like how to plug in and connect in a way that people can recognize and make sense of. But those things are all kind of training wheels stuff compared to actually being with people. So yeah, shoot, like I'm not sure what more to add or what direction you want me to take this, because I feel like there's so many. But
right.
Well,
I think the one of the interesting phenomenons or one of the interesting things that we encounter just as a human species is when we interact with something that we don't quite understand or something that we're unfamiliar with. We get a level of anxiety or uncomfortableness about that, and naturally we want to ease that anxiety or that uncomfortableness in some way. And one way is just to head out and just get away from it, or the other way is to try to learn more about it. But I
Right.
think one of the interesting things about that statement, learn more about it, is that there's more things that should come after that. Like you don't go up to someone and say, "Hey, I wanna learn more about you." That
No,
it doesn't ring well. Even
no,
saying I want to learn more about your customs, that doesn't ring well either. Or I want to learn more about your songs. Anything that you put after that, it's not going to ring well. It seems to be. And I had a discussion about this today, as a matter of fact, about really what is the purpose of developing a social connection with someone or a group of people, and if that idea of making that connection is for some motive that's I guess in certain cases employment related or research related, like some task from some place that pays you, that doesn't ring well to anybody, any cultural group. I don't know, I it just seems that way. I don't know if that's completely true, because some people might embrace it.
Okay, so I guess like responding to what you're saying, like intent really matters,
Yeah,
you know.
it does.
And I think there's lots of different forms of approaching that. But you're right, like some of the ones to be wary of are if you're trying to tick a box, if you need a token Indian to do something because you had to tick the box.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
so just working at the college, we run into that all the time. All the time.
Right.
It's a weekly event.
Right.
Um, the other one I would say on the non-Indian side more is like doing it because it's cool, doing it because it's exotic to you, doing it
Oh
because
yeah.
it's doing
Yeah.
it because it's like it's not just different, but it's like mysterious or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah. What is that? What is the motivation? Like if someone wants to be native, man, go live in the dumps, man. Go live in the dumps for a while, and you know, take on some people who are addicted, and care for them for a number of years. Then you can call yourself native. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
Oh
the
God.
reality. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
that's not all of it, but you know,
I mean, it's a big part of it though,
it's a
like
big part of it.
the struggle and when I lived in Harley and Josh would come over and we'd sweat and we had a lot of these basically like podcast conversations, man.
Right.
Like some pretty cool conversations. But one of the things that I think too though, I know intent is a big part of it. Josh, maybe you can shed some light on this. Is like, but do you think there's just some things? Doesn't matter how what your intent is and how righteous it is that you just shouldn't be a part of. Do you
Mm,
think that's the case?
mm.
There's a case of that.
I think yeah, that's something that uh you can develop a sixth sense for. Um
Mm.
and what I mean by that is not this is not what I'm saying is not a superstitious or religious sensibility at all. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is when you
So
are
you don't employ your third eye to
yeah,
see.
I'm not talking about that.
Don't rub your crystal to figure out where you don't belong.
Well, I mean, if you have to, that's one of those things. Like if you have to rub a crystal, maybe you're onto something, and it's that you should be there, right? But it's like, can you, if imagine an entire group of people turning and asking you what the hell you're doing there. If you can't take on the room,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
Because
know what?
because
Yeah.
any one of them is the room.
Right.
That's so these real sensitive times and places they're about connection and they're about people coming together.
Yeah.
And one of the insights that I had as a visitor and as a non-Indian person is that there are times when I can fit into that, and there are times when I'm interrupting it. And as somebody who respects Indian culture a lot and realizes how rare some of these gatherings are and how important they are in terms of like the year and getting stuff done for family groups and like, you know, doing it the right way, doing it in a good way. You don't want to do it in a bad way. You don't want to be the thing that stinks. And I've stinked up some stuff.
Stinkville. What did you say about Stinkville that time?
Something smells good in Stinkville.
So you stank up some stuff. Stank. Okay. This reminds me of something. And I think I talked about it on a previous episode. I can't remember, but I was in a part of a situation where that kind of happened. Someone was outed. You know, like, why are you here? And it was a bit uncomfortable for everybody, but the guy I guess he had every right to say that. And I don't think he was really necessarily trying to be rude, but his demeanor was like that, and he just had to call it out, I guess, the way he's seen it. And the response was really I had to really think about it for a second, because I never heard that kind of response. So this person who's non-native has said, well, you know, I'm here just to support indigenous people because my people signed the treaty, so I'm trying to uphold my end of it. And I'm like, oh wow, yeah, what?
I never heard that before.
Yeah, like what? Okay, that's kind of cool, you know, because we always think of treaty as this Indian thing, but there's a whole nother party that signed that, and yeah, they have that obligation as well to those things in that treaty. And I thought that was kind of. I guess
you're right. Like Indian people, just side note of treaties, we do think of treaties as almost one way, huh?
Yeah. And if I think if other non-natives and you know took that to a treaty signing to mean that so there's two parties here, we have a certain obligation because our forefathers signed that treaty as well, just like your forefathers signed it. And so we should also uphold that word that they made that long ago. So that's kind of an admirable way to put it. I thought that person just said, well, my folks signed this treaty years ago, and I'm just trying to uphold my end of it. Pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, and in my book, he had the explanation ready for the room, right?
Yeah.
He might have gone ahead and acquiesced and said,
he or she, go. He or she.
Right. She.
He or she. They. Anyway, go. Yeah, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
That's all right. I think I made my point, you know.
Yeah.
I like that. Have the response ready. Like if you're not ready to take on the room, like I never even thought of that. See, this is why you're here, White Josh.
Yeah.
God dang.
God dang it. You know, the next we ought to have Craig Cameron on.
My buddy Craig.
Yeah, we should have him on. No.
Go dang. Go dang.
That'd be a funny one. Anyway, you know, so that's what it reminds me of, that instance. I think you're right. I think all people, if have the right intention, and I think they can contribute to any number of things. I think even today, we all know that one non-Indian person that helps out in a certain way, has knowledge of things in a certain way, and they don't use it in as a manner to lift themselves up above the cause of a tribalhood or whatever you might call it. They just want to be a part of the helping, like Aaron said earlier. I want to do this because I want they understand it. They understand it. I want to do this because I want to get some good luck for myself and my family. They're not doing it to write a book. They're not doing it to show off or to be known, you know, to have some street cred when they go down to the IGA, drop a name of a council person, and I don't know. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of odd and weird reasons people will do those kind of things in the wrong way.
So and let's describe that more, because you were talking also about like the hardship of being Indian, and like, if you want to be Indian, often those people who are like that, man, they've put in some time. They've come and come back, and they're making themselves known and available to more than just one person, or just like a favorite person. And I think that they're aware of, okay, this is like related to what you guys were saying, but like part of the parts of being Indian that aren't cool are really not cool. You really don't want to have to experience the uncoolness in order to like gain some credibility about who you are, right? Like,
right.
I do not want to have to be forced to, be almost homeless, live on commodities, like you were saying, have multiple generations of folks who are addicted to a drug, or what I'm saying? Like, all of these limitations are real things. They're a part of that story.
Right.
Trying to give short shrift to that as though like you could join in,
join the club.
That's a big mistake, No, you don't want that pain. You don't want you have no idea how uncool that is. That is not cool.
Right.
And so that's another big part of the respect, is like realizing there's some serious costs that have come, and they're borne by these folks. And if that's not you, you're just lucky. You're just lucky.
Right. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to totally mischaracterize the life of a native person. That's part of it, some of those things, but in other ways there are experiences that are difficult, but they don't involve the negative things. It's just the hardship of a life that you engage in ceremonially. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about some of the things that happen down in Aaron's territory, but there's a lot. There's a sacrifice you have to make. Just do it to, for example, someone running for a princess down there, for their celebration. They do that. Their whole family is taking on this large, and I wouldn't really say a burden in a way, but it's this thing you have to do to complete that process, and it's difficult monetarily, it's difficult time-wise, logistically, all those things. So aside from the dysfunction, the life of a native person is also hard in another way, but it's in a fulfilling and meaningful way, which a lot of people, it's hard for them to do that. It's just, they don't get that. They see the flashy side of it, the end of it. They see the end of it where you're doing something and you see that product of all that work, but you don't see the work. And I've seen a number of times where people, young native people, will buy into that. They don't see the work that goes into something. They just see the end and they say, I want to do that. I want to be that thing. But they don't see the work that goes into it. And it turns them into something that they shouldn't be. They don't know how to do the work. So yeah,
it's not realistic. it's not realistic. It's not a realistic view of that community, you know, or that way that tribe does things. Because I actually think I went through some of that at Flathead.
Yeah.
So when I first moved there, right away, man, like I made friends with the right person, it seemed like, but that wasn't my intent. We just became buddies, and shit, I was right in there with these old folks and getting to
Yeah.
do cool stuff and witnessing cool things. Meanwhile, it took me a few years, but then I realized, like, man, from the outside looking in, it probably looks kind of messed up. Like here's these Indian kids from there that they may not have the resources to or the know-how to jump in something like that. They're just
Yeah.
waiting for an invite. And then
Yeah.
here's me taking up space, thinking it's what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, I live here. I should be participating in
Yeah.
what they do. This is the respectful thing to do, not realizing you're cheesing somebody, man. I knew I was only, and I should have had enough wherewithal to say, like, hey, there's little kids here. Maybe you guys should ask one of them kids. I mean, there were some instances where, like, nobody was there, and I was just with this guy, and they were like, yeah, bring him
Yeah.
along. That was just real informal and casual, but you know, certain things.
Yeah. 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 I think it happens, but I think it happens with, it can happen with non-Indians and Indians as well. That idea of taking up space where you don't realize that you should just chill. All right, just a quick break here to thank some of our sponsors, especially Wild Gallery, WYLD.GALLERY. Wild Gallery, thank you for supporting the show. And thank you to past sponsor, Louise Erdrich. Thank you both for your continued contributions and your past contributions to keep the show on the air. Thank you.
I think it comes from an older belief of wanting to, when guests come, you share with them stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then I think we have to take that same belief and learn to share it with our own people. Don't assume everybody in your community knows this stuff or are privy to it. I think Crow's a good example of people who know things, but they're not privy to them. Like, if you were to go and talk to a lot of Crow people, they would know about things. They would know about a ceremony, what it's for, why they do it, when they do it, but they may have never even seen it before, never even been invited to one.
Right.
So it's kind of a unique situation. But we know everyone knows a white guy who got to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What about him?
I didn't mean to give you such a verbal lashing there, Josh.
Oh, that's all right. I know it wasn't just this white Josh you were talking about.
No,
the universal white Josh out there.
Everyone knows a white Josh. Actually, I don't think everyone knows a white Josh. I think I know everyone knows a disruptive white guy, but I don't think there's a lot of white guys like you, Josh, who maybe feel like they were that at the beginning, but quickly realize, like, hey, fuck, my presence alone can be. What did you say? You text me and said our white people's presence alone can be disruptive.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so but that has to do with this is not a racial observation. This has to do when you realize as a non-Indian person that a doings is about those people making connections in a deep, deep way. If you're not totally sincere and ready in your heart to make those kinds of connections at the level and investment that they are, or that the other people around you are, let's not make it us them. Let's just say we're in this thing, right? If you feel that as you're in it, it's taking you places that you're not prepared to go, that's one level. But then the next level is am I affecting other people getting there? And that's not cool. That's rude, right?
Agreed. It's like cutting in front of the line,
Yeah.
but you're not really aware that there's a particular order of things.
Right.
I went to Home Depot the other day.
Yeah.
And we're looking for some spray paint. So we're walking by the paint counter, and there's all these people lined up. And we're not there to get canned paint, And there's a number of people kind of milling about. They're not really standing in a line, they're just kind of massed around a counter.
Mm.
And the guy is that mixes the paint, he puts it in there and puts in a little shake or whatever. He finishes one job and he comes around the counter and he says, "Who's next? Be honest. Be honest. Come on, please." And all these people are standing around because I mean, I don't know. I just kind of dropped into the situation, but apparently he must have thought something was up. Some line cutters. I don't know.
Ooh,
Yeah.
some cheesers.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of those folks, they just cut right in. I've done it. I've done it in my youth.
I've done it.
You've done it?
I can still do it.
Well, okay, so this is another part of it is you got to be willing to make mistakes.
Be willing to take risks too.
You don't learn.
Yeah. Line cutters take risks.
Yeah.
Social risk.
You got to take a risk.
Yeah. I'm not advocating for that in this instance. I'm just saying if you want paint, if you want a can of paint sooner than your neighbor, you might take a little risk and edge in there. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I don't know. I can see it. I can see some of the hardships and some of the challenges with our non-native. We call them allies. You call them allies?
Yeah.
You call them ally? Is that what you call them, Aaron? I said this.
White folk, dude.
Yeah, I was trying to get out of you because I said that once, and you said, "No, we call them white folk."
Double agents.
Double agent.
White folk, dude. What's wrong with being white folk?
I know.
It's cool.
I don't know.
It's cool.
Cool.
One time I went to a tribal consultation and this guy said after the meeting or during the meeting towards the end, he kind of got frustrated and he said, well, we just don't know what we're supposed to do. He was like frustrated. He was like, we don't know all the protocols. We just don't know. We get, and it's hard. And he was like, you could tell he was like really frustrated.
Yeah.
Frustrated. And then there was these other tribal people that were kind of like, well, we appreciate your good heart and all that horse shit. And I just said, it's not the job of a Tippo to teach you what your mom should have taught you.
Right. Yeah.
Just be cool, man. Be cool.
Right.
That's all it comes down to, man. If you're cool, tribal people will tell you where not to be, where to be, all that. They will.
Yeah.
They're like, we want to be respectful, all that. Well, fuck, we're not aliens, man.
Yeah.
Like it's like, take me to your leader. Like, come on, dude, just be cool. What I think white people fail to remember is that we deal with white people every day. So I
remember that.
I know how to talk to white folk. Okay.
Yeah.
So just be cool. We're gonna make it work, man. I'll tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. Just be cool, man.
Just sit there and be cool.
Yeah, just like I don't go to other communities. I used to work with like a lot of Muslims and stuff when I was at the university, and I never pretended to know anything or anything. I had enough sense to know where there was like cultural boundaries and stuff. So I'd be like, "Are you cool with that?" And then they're like, "Yeah," or "No." Hey, they told me because I was being cool, man. Yeah, like I didn't, and then all I did was log it. Every time they said don't, I logged it, and pretty soon I was able to kind of navigate through their stuff. It was just,
that works. So going deeper into the intent issue and like realizing what's going on now, I think that part of the difficulty is, man, on top of white people maybe feeling frustrated about protocols or whatever, I think spiritually, white culture is in a very weird place where a lot of the rituals that worked in the past 300 to 500 years, let's say, in European Christianity or religious life, they're kind of wearing off. And I remember speaking about this briefly with Aaron when he called me before, but it kind of speaks volumes when the Aspen Institute at their gathering of billionaires in Colorado have a shaman on the agenda. There's something weird going on. So culturally speaking, there's some sort of turn going on that has to do, I think, also with the environmental crisis, where white people are sort of looking in the direction of Indian people in a very weird way, in a way that might be disruptive of kind of like a pure intent, and or also may bring about some common ground, depending on how you're able to talk about it. But it's an odd thing.
Yeah, this is the thing that I was having another conversation about, and I didn't really dawn on me. So my world is far different from some of my colleagues I work with here at this university. And so my life is filled with all of these things that I don't really let them in on, because it doesn't come up in conversation. But we're talking about singing, because one of my colleagues, one of my friends, he joined a show choir. I just had an interest and just never sang before. And he said, the typical Anglo, we don't sing anymore. Singing is not part of a lot of things that we do. And I said, well, yeah, I guess so, ain't it? What about church? And he says, well, it's usually they have a choir, and maybe if you're invited, you can sing, but it's mainly performative. It's not really for some sort of purpose. He said, so in our, this is the way he was saying it. So in our cultural pursuits, there's not a lot of singing that is involved in anything. And that's almost the complete opposite of kind of the life of a lot of Native people. Singing is a very, very important part of a lot of things. Some of it's performative. Powwows, some would argue it's pretty performative, but some of the songs are, come from certain places that are not, the reason is not for performance per se, like a non-native. You go into a great hall and you stand on a whatever the
American Idol.
Yeah, it's not for that. It's
right.
Something else. So yeah, I thought that was kind of neat, a neat insight on looking into a world that's not of my own. I was like, okay, I see that. I see this void of singing. Sure, people enjoy hearing songs, but and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's not a spiritual or religious connection to singing anymore. I might be completely wrong, but what are your thoughts on that? You're
right.
You come from
Scranton. There might have been at
Scranton.
One time.
Yeah,
there used to be, and I also think that has a particular, cultural power and force to it, coming together and singing songs.
Right.
And actually there's some non-Indian like cultures in America that were based on that. That's what the Shaker religion is based on. It's a translation of a Indian longhouse singing culture that got brought into a Christian faith community, and they sing those shape tone. I forget what. It's a very distinctive kind of singing. Um,
Yeah, like shape notes.
shape notes.
Shape
Yeah.
notes?
Shape note singing is like kind of a form of like Baptist,
Oh,
Yeah.
kind of a real conservative form of like Baptist missionaries, and then they'd make like weird motions when they sing.
oh,
Shape note singing. It's real like kind of got a weird tone to it.
really?
It's kind of eerie and powerful,
Yeah,
but
eerie. It is pretty cool actually if you listen to shape note singing.
Hmm. I'll have to
It's
listen to it. I
interesting, you
never,
know.
I'm
anyway,
unfamiliar. Okay, yeah.
this is the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, the last 100 years, especially maybe even before then, but let's take the last 100 years. The ways that European societies and colonial societies that are in power have become more and more invested in technology and in individual effort. I mean, these things are tearing down whatever the purpose of a choir is, right? Has
Hmm.
been totally eclipsed by these other pursuits. And those pursuits are really pretty mechanistic and cold, and they sure are powerful right now. And they sure have made an incredible historic difference.
Hmm.
But gosh, like are they helpful to the human scene and the human community getting together and recognizing some basic common stuff that is kind of magic? I think we lose that, right? Like the magic that we're engaged in right now is this magic of like Zoom and being thousands of miles apart from one another and having a conversation, which is cool. It's something. It's not nothing, right? It's
Right.
new. It sort of divides the world into two groups: the people who can do this and afford this, and people who can't.
Hmm.
That is a power, but like at the expense of actually being together, breathing the same air in and out, carrying a tune, that's a lot older, powerful thing. That's a lot more, I don't know. People talk about holistic or integrated or whatever, but the
Circular.
point being that it invites a lot of people. A lot of people can join in.
Right.
Way more than can join this, right? So I think you're right, this is part of like the poverty of the spirit that white people go through when they show up on Indian reservations asking like, hey,
Hmm.
how do you do? So it's a weird kind of poverty.
That's a catchy phrase, man. The
It's it's
poverty of the
it's weird.
spirit.
It's
Yeah.
weird. It's stupid. You feel sort of illiterate. And also I don't know what is the word. It's not a moral bankruptcy. It's just like I didn't get this. Like you were saying before, like it's not your problem what my mom didn't teach me.
Mm.
Okay, but if my mom can't teach it to me, where do I go? I get that you don't want to teach me, but I don't have a whole lot of options here. What am I going to do? Go like pretend that I'm fasting and pretend that I'm having a vision quest and hope that happens? I'm not so sure. So it's very easy, I think, for because white people have been kind of detached from this stuff to get very you can get uh you can fool yourself. You can be very deluded.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
Well, I think I I can't disagree with you on all that. And I think I
Well, I wouldn't
think
even know, to be honest, because I don't
yeah.
we don't know that. Honestly, I don't know that perspective.
Yeah.
So, like when it
Yeah.
comes to native things, right? Obviously, we're in a little more privileged position where we got front row seats,
Yeah.
and so it's a good reminder, though, to like to hear uh, that we don't have that. Like when you're talking about, what did you say? Culturally bankrupt. Isn't that what you texted me? I think you said culturally bankrupt or spiritually
Spiritual
bankrupt.
poverty.
Spiritual
Yeah,
poverty.
there's a spiritual poverty. Yeah.
Yeah. We sit in
Yeah.
a pretty privileged position that not only do we have a belief system, we have options within the belief system, even. And then for those options, we have fail safes. And we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have that and to have it come from the environment in which we live in.
Yeah.
That this belief system was not born somewhere else.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That it's from here. So you not only do you have the fail safes and the safety nets and then the avenue, the tools to spiritually succeed, you actually have physical landmarks reminding you of those things.
Right.
That's powerful, man.
That is.
That's powerful. And I think sometimes we take for granted that we have that. And we do our best to seek it elsewhere, even unknowingly.
Yeah. What is that?
I don't know, man.
That is weird. You're right. No, but this is what I was thinking when Josh was saying this. Was it sounds very much like some indigenous people, some native people. They're at the same place that some well-intending non-natives are at, because they never had opportunity, and then they weren't taught by their mom or dad certain things, and they're excluded in a certain manner because of. Go ahead, Josh. I see you're trying to say
okay,
something.
so
Let her rip,
a related thing that goes on is I think this is unhelpful. The discussion around intergenerational trauma sometimes is also, it tiptoes next to the idea that culture and genetics should somehow go hand in hand. I think that is.
What do you mean?
Like if I have Indian blood in me, then I know something.
Oh, right. Yeah,
or
you're a good tracker. You can track.
Yeah,
track deer like no one
related
else.
To this.
No one else's business. Yeah.
I'm not saying there's nothing to that. I'm just saying that I think the more reasonable approach is that cultural transmission it involves your whole life, right?
Right.
It's not just one part of you. It's not just your blood. It's not just where you're at,
Yeah.
So you got to take on the whole thing. And I just wanted to say that in relation to what goes on there, because people get cast, in a certain role.
Yeah.
Like, he's from here, but he doesn't know anything. Or he knows a lot, but he's white.
Yeah. Whatever. That's a strange thing.
That goes on.
That is a strange thing. And then there's also people who they're from there. They were raised in this way, but they abandoned it for something else.
Yeah.
There's that too, which is a strange phenomenon in itself.
I think in that case too, you run into where Indian women who are raised traditionally to believe and participate, then their spouse doesn't do that.
Oh yeah.
So they take on the beliefs of their spouse, and they grow old, and then maybe like I've witnessed this where like the husband died, and then the wife, who's an old lady, reverts back to everything she used to do. So then people like in their 50s and 60s will say, why is that lady like, she doesn't know anything? And it's like, well, actually she does. She basically like press pause,
Right.
And I actually think this is my theory, that was more common at Flathead than any other reservation I've been to.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
It just seemed like
just observation.
In the 20s and 30s, there was like a real big influx of like, I don't know what you would call that. Not just like, but like intermarriage, like from other from white people, but from other tribes too. And
that's true. Yeah.
So that in the 50s, when all them people were older, in 60s, they were coming back, and then people were like, these are just old Catholics, or whatever.
Yeah.
It seemed like if you look at some of that, it's there. Like it's real common that intermarriage, because there was so much intermarriage at Flathead just by numbers alone that you would have to think that, right?
Yeah.
And then what people don't realize is the Little Shell Indians and some Cree people like kind of flooded the southern half of the res there. And then you had people like from the Blackfeet coming and living there. But the best example that I know of is Ushani Kenmil.
Right.
Someone who was raised Salish, spoke the language, very traditional person, then married a Kootenai and essentially became Kootenai.
Right.
And then after her husband had passed away, she seemed to revert back to a lot of the Salish stuff and that community, being more active in that community again. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, I think that's a good example of that. I think you made
that
your
a killer
case.
Was that a killer observation, dude?
It was, man. I mean, you
travel
had me,
research specialist.
I couldn't stop listening. I wanted you to go further. You had me. You had me. Keep going, man. No, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. That's another phenomenon that happens. And I think let's see. Does it happen in the reverse though? I don't know. There's a lot of old.
I think location.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Where is this happening at?
Yeah, where's that? Yeah, you see a lot of older Indian men with white women.
Hey, what about this one?
Oh,
what
okay.
about this one?
Yeah.
Do you feel like sometimes Indian people will hook up with a white person and basically step up their Indian game because they're with a white person?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that they're with the white person makes them like be extra Indian and then like
try to compensate for something they perceive as a
you think that's
a deficit. Man, I don't know.
Look
I
at
think
Josh's
so.
face. Look at
Yeah.
What's going on with you, Josh?
Oh, so one time I was hanging out with Buck Morjo and he was making like handicrafts that he would sell at powwow. And he just turned to me and he had this like wooden arrow, or no, it was a wooden feather. And he was like, what do you think there, Josh? Does this look Indian-y enough to you?
Indian-y enough?
Indian-y. Yeah.
That's a cool. I'm gonna buy that one.
And the fact that I was being asked this and the fact that he said it that way, just I don't know, man. Like that whole thing, like turning up the Indian, like what does that even mean? Like there again, it's like is this all just cartoons? Is culture just cartoons?
I don't know. Only a white guy would ask that.
Are we really a cartoon?
Are we dude, are we even here?
Oh God.
I don't know, man. I think it's important though because I would like to think that there's non-Indian people listening to our podcast who I would like to think are doing some level of research in Indian communities, right? So
sure, yeah.
Probably like listen, because that's kind of the keywords that we use, right? Even though I think that we don't talk up necessarily about research, we just talk about things that it's like our form of research, huh? We're not sitting here going over like methods and stuff, but
yeah,
it is influenced by that. But so Josh, I want you to tell us what you think. What's your opinion? What does it mean when somebody says indigenous research?
Oh Christ. Why are you asking me this? This is
well, I'm curious, dude, because the truth is you're a learned white folk, right?
Oh, well,
and
thanks.
You have some strong connection to Indian country. So you probably have a better understanding of most white researchers. So the reason I'm asking you is because I want you to tell me, because I'm assuming you're not going to get it right completely. Like it's going to be good, but there's going to be some things me and Shandin can probably critique. But the fact is, I want the listener to hear that someone that I respect, and I respect the research they've done, that they're working at it, and if they don't get it 100%, there's no way in God's green earth that the others can get it. I just don't want people need to hear that. They need a sounding board. They need a barometer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
And it's not realistic for the barometer to be Indian people if you're not Indian.
Yeah. That's
You know what
important.
I mean?
Really important.
That's real important. So that's why I want you to say what you think indigenous research is.
Set the bar.
I wasn't trying
pressure.
to like set you up or try
Yeah.
to be funny or anything. I just really curious.
Well, we might be
Okay,
funny
well,
about it, but
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
mean-
say something though.
yeah.
Are you talking about white people studying Indians for a reason, or are you talking about people adopting an indigenous method?
Everything, because
Everything?
even that question, even what you just asked me back, 90% of people don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Oh, right. Okay.
Research. So
So
that's exactly what I want you to like bring
okay.
it on. Yeah.
Okay. So
It-
let me just clarify, audience here. This is for my answer is for non-Indian people who are interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. What you probably understand from movies and books and things that you've looked at
Sounds
is
like
that
PSA.
Indian cultures are pretty different from ours, or from the one that you have in your head currently. And we all have one in our head, right?
This is good.
So in order to understand that difference, like, how different could it be? And yeah, it's so different that things like ideas about who you are, where you come from, what you call the place you live might change after you've looked at it long enough. Once you realize that the place that you live in, it wasn't always Wayne, Pennsylvania, in my case, or wasn't always my high school, wasn't always Conestoga High School, and it wasn't always here, and it was named after a particular thing.
Yeah.
Once you realize all those stories going back, then to be honest intellectually, you'd have to then take into account other people's stories and see how long they were around and see how long they called something what they called it. And to realize that the entire idea of America is a flash in the pan compared to most indigenous understandings, is the beginning of an appreciation for how rich that area is. That's the beginning. That's the starting point. I can't tell you how many people are walking around who don't even have the starting point. So the number of people who need to, who have to gain the appreciation in order to just begin is huge. Now, the number of people who carry on after they've made that appreciation, after they've understood a little bit, they realize that, oh man, there's a whole world here, or there's a whole multiple worlds, because tribes thought of the world differently, and each world is as old as another, maybe, or as rich as another, because the places are as rich as other places. This is when we're getting into like really very deep territory. And those understandings were practical. They were based on people facing real problems and generating real solutions as a result. That to me is what indigenous research is. It's when people who are not colonial people solve problems and then they hold on to it. Colonial problem solving tends to look very different. It tends to be narrower, and it tends to involve a possibility for violence that I think that is there's more caution, and there's more of a sense of living with or alongside of problems as you develop solutions within indigenous research and within indigenous cultures, that a lot of Western and colonial understandings just doesn't, what do you mean I'm going to live with an animal and figure out, no, a mouse is a pest. I don't want to live with it. I don't want to live with a flood. I don't want to live with, I need solutions. I need very practical things to happen now. As a result, my time span shrinks and I become very kind of short-sighted, or maybe that's not the right word, but if I'm in my colonial mindset, I'm very interested in speed, how fast I can get something done. The indigenous research method tends to involve experiments with patients, and with long periods of observation and looking, and then based on that information, acting. And that has the stuff that works when it comes to that is very, very strong, and it gets passed down. Not published in a book and commodified, taught to people in schools as though they can recite it or memorize it or something like that. Instead, it gets passed down from family members, cousins, people in your community. So that's a really long answer, but that's what it's like for me.
Very cool.
That was good. That was good. That's a sound bite.
Yeah,
Sound
right.
bite. That's the
Yeah,
sound
you could
bite.
put that on a bumper sticker.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Well, it made me think of a lot of things, like, but that comes from, and in a weird way, you've been in a fairly privileged position, because not only have you got to be around any level of like ceremonial life, but you also got to hang around with indigenous researchers, which I don't think even that those kind of like shaman seeking kind of white folk get to do. So like there was a lot of times you hung out with us at SKC, right? Shandin and I, and you to hear indigenous people sort out research problems. Man, I don't think 99% of non-Indian researchers never get to hear that, especially those working with tribal people. They don't they don't get that. So like, how many times have you sent me an article, or you said, hey, take a look at this, or like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And it's like, how many people have that?
Yeah, that's a weird, that's what I'm saying is like, so there's the beginning of the appreciation, and then there's the work that's done past that. The work that's done past that really requires a lot of imagination and creativity and work. It's real work. I remember that what you were saying, like how many times did I talk with you guys about something that I came across or whatever. I remember once there was an article in NPR had a story about some researchers who were observing puffins, and they found that puffins were dying in this region of Maine because the latitude that they were at was being overcome by fish that were too big for their young to eat. And this was related to a point that Shandin had made, where it's like, when you observe things that aren't human react to their environment, they're doing research, and you observe them struggling, or you observe them in the midst of a problem that was totally objective, that had everything to do with how they're going to adapt and respond and live. That's worthwhile. And so the point was that these guys were basically using the puffins as fish measurement tools, but they didn't know it. They didn't know enough to like give credit to the puffin for what it was doing.
I think you talked to me about this.
It was pretty interesting. But the point was that like sometimes stuff speaks to you in a way that, let's be honest, a lot of Western folks, or a lot of colonial folks, don't have a common reference for. Or I mean, maybe they do. It's just, it's back there, it's kind of Certainly not put to use every day, but it's not in the foreground.
Let me tell you what I heard, and tell me if so science in general is just a basic human. It's a human tradition, you know. It's not nothing mysterious. There's no crystal rubbing, or, you know, maybe there is in certain sense, but it. So you said the word practical, and you made a comparison.
Trial and error.
Yeah, you made a comparison of what one group thought was practical, versus what another group thought was practical, and I think that's where there stands the one of the biggest differences, I think, across different cultural groups, across different communities, across different townships, is really what's practical for that time period. And you mentioned like flooding, you know, well, we need to come up with a solution for flooding to mitigate damage to infrastructure. That becomes a practical endeavor. Whereas if you place that same situation on an indigenous community 200 years ago, yeah, the idea of practical is going to be far different. But I think Indian people today face some of the same challenges that our non-native counterparts face because of the world we live in. This practical, like what's practical for our communities right now. That's why you see a lot of research, and of course in addiction and language revitalization. You don't see a whole lot of research in engineering because that's not really it's not really a need. You don't see a lot of indigenous research in manned missions to space or astrophysics or something like that, because that's not practical. It's not fulfilling a certain need. So yeah, practicality in that way is I think goes across many different groups depending on what it is. Of course, the angle at which to define how and what to the solution that will be practical might be different. But I think time was another one that you mentioned. Time is also another factor. And I think we've adopted some of the traditions of time these days in a certain sense, just because of the way we think that we produce knowledge that fulfills that practical piece. I mean, most Indian people go to college, most Indian people finish high school, and they go off and are told to get an advanced degree and to get a job. And so we're living in that time. We're living in that same time space as well, where we feel those pressures of time, just like you do, I would think, in a way.
Sure.
But one thing you said that was pretty important is some of these things, especially in an indigenous way or a native way, they're not reproducible. And that's really, I think that's an important one. You said they're not reproducible in all situations.
Yeah.
And I think science has come to understand that. I mean, that's one of their goals, is they want to have reproducible things, you know. This should apply in other situations. That's what makes it really good science, is if I come up with a solution here and it works on another continent, that's really good science, because it can be reproduced elsewhere. You know, we can replicate that under certain circumstances. But I think understanding that that idea that sometimes we're not going to find that in indigenous research, it's not going to reproduce across communities.
Well, there's a science in appreciating uniqueness, which Western science doesn't have a lot of words for, doesn't really operate that way, right? Like, there are aspects of me and about you and about identity that are unique. There are aspects of place that are unique. Of being able to appreciate those unique things doesn't lead us to generate universals or repeatable results, right? So that's a different kind of knowing, but it's there.
Yeah. I agree, man. Yeah, but I think it's that this is the danger that I'd like to combat against, is that natives face a different reality than our non-native counterparts. In a way we do, but in a way we don't. We're all facing some of the same issues. And I think that some of the pathways to solving those issues might be similar across cultural groups. So
okay,
I think
when I said,
yeah.
I mean, okay, when I use the word world, I'm really talking about
Yeah.
like worldview. That's
Yeah. And
so
and I
maybe
wasn't saying that you were saying that. I'm just saying one of the things when we, of course, when we have to put a definition to something, when Aaron says boom, then
yeah.
define indigenous science, yeah, you have to find something to say that's going to be fairly concrete at the time, but knowing that, yeah, I mean, there's some flexibility in it all. So I think that's one of the dangers. Number one is I don't know. I wrestle with this because I need that concrete anchor to grab onto, like something in the short term to say, okay, here is what it is, and I'm going to work off of that.
Okay.
I think it's totally
Yeah.
okay to have a concrete anchor, but
Is it?
it's important for you to know that that anchor can change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this a metaphor or?
No, it's going to change. Like your
Yeah.
point of research or how or whatever it is you're doing, right? And you're saying, I
Yeah.
need that thing, whatever that concrete thing is. I think where a poor researcher will go wrong is they'll never change that.
Oh yeah.
So that means that everything they're doing is always from that thing, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I don't even know like what that can be or whatever,
Yeah.
but like it's important to like change that, like purposely. Like
Yeah.
even if it's still working for you, like just do it different, just to do it different, you know?
Yeah.
Have a different datum.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a can be a problem across any science tradition,
Mhm.
not just Western and indigenous science. Indigenous science can do the same thing. I mean, for God's sakes, if we don't have anything new coming in, we're gonna be stuck with the same thing.
Well, I think, man, dude, like not to toot our own horn, but I've gotten some cool feedback from people, and I think people see our podcast like that. It's something new. It's different than what they've been being fed the last 20 years, you know, from this field. So I think the idea that if we can get more people to do something similar, create more
Yeah.
perspective and more avenues for people to not be right, because that's the
Yeah.
research. The
Yeah.
research is you're not right or you're not wrong. You're just working it out. I
Yeah.
think Indian people feel the need. I don't know where it comes from, but they can't be wrong in that space either. So it's like,
Yeah.
and our
It's
whole
weird, ain't it?
podcast is based on us not knowing what the hell we're talking about.
It's good. That's a good start. That's a good anchor.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
So it's like,
It is.
so that's why we can bring people on like Josh here and round dance singers and different people, just because like we're not tied to any one perspective. Like we call it an indigenous research kind of podcast, but really I think it's just trying to figure it out, you know?
Look, there.
Yeah.
Going back
Yeah.
to what you were saying, Shandin, about like I don't think we're in different places or whatever. Okay, so there's a lot of discussion of our differences, Indian, non-Indian, whatever you want to call it. There's not a lot of discussion of like, well, what are the few things that we might have in common that are actually like we actually do have in common. And okay, so one thing that might be an analog for this way of research or getting back, or not getting back, but moving forward in a better way.
Yeah.
Maybe one analog is music, right? Because
I'm listening.
because we don't have the luxury of needing right and wrong answers in music. It's very subjective. And yet we can make something that's more musical than not and sort of know it and kind of can't explain why or how. And yet this is a human capacity. So I think about that and I'm more hopeful, right? Because I think people need music in more ways than one. And they search for it and they kind of yearn for it and they want it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they go about it, it can be very repetitive, and people can get caught in the same traps and the same kind of stuck in a rut, not listening enough. And so I think that's a pretty helpful starting point.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the way or whatever, but it's kind of a good kind of a good way of thinking about these things, because it requires balance and sensitivity in your whole person, and you also have to know what you're doing, and you have to have good intent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's a lot involved in it.
Yeah.
And so maybe the thing that indigenous research, the result of indigenous research is knowledge that is akin to music. I don't know how a better way to describe it than that, but it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
More musical. It's less additive. Western knowledge is kind of or very
what was that noise you just made?
Yeah, it's my language.
Do that again. Yeah, you know what I want to see? I want to see. Has we seen this yet? Is a native boy band?
Oh,
have we seen a native boy band?
I sure hope I haven't.
We need a native boy band. You guys want to try do a native boy band?
No.
Okay, Josh.
I think the equivalent.
I guess it wouldn't be native if Josh was in it, though.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be like owning an LLC, Indian LLC, as long as I'm 51% and Josh is the 49.
Hey, it'll give you a taste of what spiritual bankruptcy really feels like.
No, dude. The equivalent of an Indian boy band is singing round dance songs in a stairwell.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just
that's it. That
for the reverb.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, you know what? I think we've been at it for 2 hours, man.
Oh yeah, let's be done, dude.
Come on. Let's be done. Well, you know what I want to say is just a quick shout out to a sponsor. We got Wild Gallery. Remember Wild Gallery, that dude?
From Texas.
Yeah, down in Texas. He's still supporting the show, man.
Cool, man. Thanks, Wild Gallery. Where's he located?
First name is Ray. Ray Donnelly.
Ray Donnelly, Wild Gallery.
Austin, Texas.
Thank you for the support, man.
WYLD.gallery. Hit him up. And thanks, Josh. Partner.
That was good, man.
Do you feel do you need any services like aftercare, or are you all right?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna need counseling after this.
No, you're good.
This was good, man. This was good.
Yeah. I think that's some good insight, especially for some listeners who are maybe looking for some answers. I think that last thing about what indigenous research is, I reflect on that as some things I would also say.
Maybe we should transcribe what he said.
Should we transcribe it? We'll do some T-shirts.
Of course, black with white lettering.
Why are you wearing a T-shirt with a paragraph on it?
Well, did you read it? Did you read it?
Then you're not woke. Anyway,
get woke.
Cut this off then.
Let's cut it off. All right, we're out, man.
Okay.
Wait, no, we don't want to let Josh have any last words. No, he's too wordy. He talks way too much.
Talky White Josh says bye.
All right, thank you for tuning in. I want to take some time to thank some of our Patreon sponsors. We've got Emma LaFave, Ryan Swanson, Marzana J, Rachel Holster, Todd Davis, Louise Erdrich, Jason Friage, and Mary Bobbitt. Thank you so much for your continued contribution to help keep the show on the air. And I also want to take time to thank some of our past sponsors. We've had Annie Ost pitching in. Thank you for your donation. And also Brien Carpenter, additional thank you for pitching in and helping the show stay on the air.